What's good? It's Colleen Witt, and Eating While Broke is back for Season 3. Brought to you by the Black Effect Podcast Network and iHeartRadio. We're serving up some real stories and life lessons from people like Van Lathan, DC Young Fly, Bone Thugs and Harmony, and many more. They're sharing the dishes that got them through their struggles and the wisdom they gained along the way. We're cooking up something special, so tune in every Thursday. Listen to Eating While Broke on the Black Effect Podcast Network, iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Presented by State Farm. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Last season, millions tuned into the Betrayal podcast to hear a shocking story of deception. I'm Andrea Gunning, and now we're sharing an all-new story of betrayal. Justin Rutherford. Doctor, father, family man. It was the perfect cover to hide behind.
Detective Weaver said, "I'm sure you know why we're here." I was like, what in the world is going on?
Listen to Betrayal on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
A new season of Bridgerton is here. And with it, a new season of Bridgerton, the official podcast. I'm your host, Gabby Collins, and this season, we are bringing fans even deeper into the ton. Watch season 3 of the Shondaland series on Netflix. Then fall in love all over again by listening to Bridgerton, the official podcast, on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe to catch a new episode every Thursday.
Hi everyone, it's Amanda Rieger Green. Welcome to Soul Sessions. Guess what we're going to talk about today? Your higher self. One of my favorite things to talk about, my constant companion, the greater version of myself. I'm going to describe it. I'm going to give you some tools and insights into knowing what that connection feels like, what it looks like, and how to ground into it so you feel that flow of life. I'm going to give you all the ins and outs and the tips and my experience, and I'll define some things about the higher self, especially based in the work that I've done for the last 10 years in working with clients. And I'll start there. When I read for someone, and if you've had a session with me and it's your first time, there's an intro I give just to define what my gifts are and how they come through. And a huge part of what I do is I am able to step aside and I'm able to connect with someone's higher self. And when I do that, it's like me, Amanda, I move out of the way and then I become a vessel, a channel, a medium to deliver messages from that person's higher self. You can call the higher self the soul, the higher consciousness, the higher self, the higher mind. Also, I will call my higher self my oversoul. That's really more of what I default into. I use higher self in this podcast a lot because it's more familiar to people, but I refer to my higher self as my oversoul, meaning there's my soul, but there's also this oversoul, which to me says it's multifaceted, it's layered. And when I channel, when I connect with someone's higher self, the way that that energy shows up to me, it's like a mirror ball. It is literally like a mirror ball of light, information, intelligence, memories, color, sounds. It's just a tapestry of someone. And I will often say it's like a choir of you shows up for me. And that's what it's like. It's like the choir, the full-on choir is who your higher self is. It's the choir. It's the part of you that is your direct link to God, to source, to universe, to prime creator, spirit of the universe, whatever it is for you. And even when I say that, that's very linear because I'm like, this is your direct link. Like you need an intermediary to talk to God, which would be like a priest in the Catholic Church. You know, that's the way that that is set up. You know, confessional and certain things, like you need an intermediary. And the higher self is not an intermediary by any means. It's like the gateway to God. It's that part of you, the essence of who you innately are, every version of you that ever has been and ever will be is in that mirror ball or choir of energy that is the higher self, the higher mind, the oversoul, the higher consciousness. It's almost like a funnel straight to source. It's interchangeably connected. So when you connect to your higher self, when you feel that conscious connection, it's divine and you're consciously connecting with God. So it's like both and is your higher self God? Yes. Is God your higher self? Yes. Are you part of God? Yes. It's so much and so multifaceted. Don't try to put it in a box. It's infinite. Your higher self is infinite, connected to the infinite. And we are these human beings that have inactive DNA, shut down brain frequencies. We are working in an operating system in our bodies, in our biology, that is not fully activated. So the higher self is like this emissary to light, intelligence, the infinite, everything that can or will be infinite possibility. And the higher self is always guiding and directing us. And sometimes, and this is where it gets hysterical, and I laugh sometimes, we're a lot for the higher self. The higher self is up there saying, oh my gosh, Amanda, pull it together, get back on track. I asked you to take a left, but of course you took a right again because you're in your ego and your self-will, and you're trying to run the darn show, and my higher self is up there going, gosh, she's exhausting. She's so exhausting. I guide and direct her, but, she's like a little puppy dog and she just is going to do what she wants to do and go to the bathroom on the floor because she doesn't know better, and hopefully you're laughing about this because there is nothing minimized about the soul or the higher self or our human self, but it's a way of thinking. This is this part of you that is so innately infinite and divine and conscious, and working to steer you kind of like a river flowing. And we all know what it feels like to be in the flow. When things are clicking, things work, life feels like it's opening up rather than getting smaller. And then, of course, we all know when it's harder and there's more resistance, more pain, more suffering, more anger, more trauma, and we can be in that shut down space. But connecting with the higher self, making it more accessible and almost second nature, what it does is it helps expand your outlook, your perspective, your healing, your well-being, but it illuminates your soul's path. And there's no end to the soul's path. So there's no goal at the end, no pot of gold at the end of that rainbow. It's more about, oh my gosh, I'm on the path. Capital T, capital P. I'm in the journey. I'm in the flow. I'm in sync. I'm in alignment. And what I want you to think about to start with is I'm going to articulate some instances in which I know my higher self was talking to me. God was trying to get my attention. The universe was saying, Amanda, use it or lose it. Come on. Come on, pay attention. And I wouldn't have been able to define this years ago. But looking back, I'm like, oh, that's what that was. A simple example of that is I remember when I was looking at colleges and I wanted to go to a smaller school. I had been in a smaller high school and I didn't want to go to a big university. I lived in Louisiana, and so naturally I could have gone to LSU, but I didn't want to be lost. I didn't want to be a number. I really wanted a more intimate setting. And so I knew I wanted to go to a smaller liberal arts university. And so I had all these schools on my list, and a lot of the schools that I had on my list, if I look back and think about it, it was either the prestige of the name or, oh my gosh, this is such a beautiful campus. It'd be so amazing if I went here. Like a lot of it was just kind of my superficial, fixed perspective, which would be more of my ego. And not that I knew that then or there is anything wrong with that. But if I look at the choices I was making, they checked a lot of criteria and boxes, which I had outlined. My dad really wanted me to go to this school called Sewanee, the University of the South, which is in Tennessee. And I remember when he suggested that, I had a couple of cousins who had graduated from there, and it was affiliated with the Episcopal Church, which I was raised Episcopalian. So there were a lot of boxes that checked for him, and he kept suggesting it. And it actually fit all the criteria that I was looking for in a smaller university. But I kept saying, no, I don't want to go there. No, I'm not going there. I am not going there. And of course I'm, 17 years old and, ruling the world in my mind. But anyway, I remember distinctly, and I don't remember the day that I said this, but like I came home one day from school and we had looked at some other colleges and I just said, hey, Dad, I think I want to go look at Sewanee. And he just looked at me and he goes, really? And I said, yeah, I want to go take a trip. Let's go to Sewanee. And he says, okay. And here's what's interesting about this. I don't know where that came from, but something shifted. And I heard myself say, Amanda, stop being so stubborn. Like, go. Like, this is an available option for you. You could probably get a scholarship here. It makes sense. It checks the boxes. Why are you being so resistant? Just go on the trip. Go see it. You haven't seen it. I call that contempt prior to investigation, right? So we went on this road trip, and it was the last road trip I ever went on with my dad. It's the most intimate time I spent with him because he died. That was in the fall of, it would be 1998, and my dad died the Sunday after Easter the next year. So we went on this road trip, and my mom had breast cancer and was really sick and couldn't do much. She had just finished a surgery, but so she was basically asleep in the back of the car. And my dad and I drove most of the way together, and we talked and we laughed and we listened to music, and it was very intimate. And my mom, she said she would act like she was asleep and she'd be listening to us. And she said we were just enjoying each other. And we got to Sewanee. It's a beautiful campus on a nearly 13,000-acre domain in the Cumberland Plateau of Tennessee. And it's the fall, and fall is gorgeous at Sewanee. It always gets like one of the top 100 most beautiful campuses in the United States, and it is. It's modeled off of Oxford in England, so it's got a Harry Potter vibe, like you can like picture it in your head. So we drive through the gates, and there's this cool thing when you drive through the gates of Sewanee, you tap the top of your car and you get your angel, is what it's called. You grab your angel. And we had read about that, or somebody knew, and I remember my dad was like, get your angel. We drive through the gates and we pull onto the campus, and like as we get there, and we hadn't been there 10 minutes, and I remember looking at my dad and I said, this is where I'm going to school. And he just looked at me and I was like, yeah. This is home. And that was it. I interviewed, I applied early admission, I got in. And interestingly enough, my dad died, months later, and it drastically changed our financial situation. And I ended up getting pretty massive scholarships to Sewanee for a multitude of reasons, some academic, but a lot of service I had done in the Episcopal Church in my high school years and things like that. And it was like the way was paved for me to go there, and me going to Sewanee was exactly where I was supposed to be. There are pivotal moments and reasons for that. It's where I realized I love academia. I love to learn. It's where I decided that I did not want to be a doctor. I wanted to be a religion major. It's where I recognized I don't have to go to med school. I don't have to be who I thought was conditioned into me. Oh my gosh, I can go get a Master of Public Health. Like there are so many other higher self instances. But that knowing when I was on that campus, I hadn't even interviewed. We hadn't looked at, any of the classrooms. I hadn't met professors. I hadn't met other students yet. All of those things. But I looked over and I said, this is where I'm supposed to be. And everything fell into place for me to be there. And while I was there, it nourished and changed and grew and nurtured me. It's a very sacred place to me for a multitude of reasons, but also there was a knowing. So I want you to think back to times in your life where you just knew. It's like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do. Or, oh, I get it. Oh, this makes sense. Oh, this is me. That's the higher self. That knowing. It's like an aha moment, but more than the aha, it's like, yes, exactly. Instead of everything falling apart, it's everything falling together. It's like all aspects of yourself and your soul are one. It's a oneness, a knowing, an awareness that is highly present and transcendent simultaneously. And that's what the interconnection of the self, our human self, our ego, our busy minds, and that higher self is an I know, oh, eureka. And it's not like, eureka, it's more like, oh, eureka. And so hopefully I'm translating this in like this language of the heart, this language of the soul, because it's knowing. So think back about points in your life when you made a decision and it was like your head, your heart, your gut, you just knew. Outline those times and think about that's when your higher self was grabbing you to get your attention and you listened. You heard it and you heeded the call. You heed the call. It's like there's a call to action and you got enough cotton out of your ears and a little bit of ego out of the way to say, okay. And it can be in really challenging circumstances too. So if you flash forward months later, when my dad died, the Sunday morning where he got sick, my dad had congestive heart failure or a pulmonary embolism, and it was very early on a Sunday morning. And I remember waking up and I could hear my mom and dad downstairs and there was a lot of commotion going on. And I remember waking up and I could hear that chaos. And immediately in my bones, I remember thinking, oh my gosh. And listen, my dad hadn't been sick. He had been tired and some things were going on, but nothing to indicate, oh my gosh, your dad's gonna die. I mean, absolutely no evidence to that effect at that time. But I woke up that morning, I heard the chaos, and I remember curling up in a ball in my bed, and I innately, distinctly heard, it wasn't a voice, it was that knowing of, this is real, Amanda, your dad's dying. Like it was like, yes, this is happening. And I don't know if in that moment there was this feeling of, yes, you're going to be okay. It was more like, no, Amanda, this is real. And I remember putting the pillow over my head and saying, okay, Amanda, just go back to sleep and this isn't real. Go back to sleep. There's nothing happening. Go back to sleep until they call you downstairs. I remember knowing in my bones he was about to die. And I was like, oh, no, he's not. If I go back to sleep, then it's just a dream. So it was like I felt that knowing that morning. And sure enough, the rest of that story unfolds pretty tragically and traumatically. But he did die that morning. He died probably about 30 minutes after that in our home. And it was a lot. It was a whole lot. But I heard my higher self in the midst of that trauma, desperation. It was like trauma, desperation, awakening. But a knowing, even though I didn't want to know. It was something, different than me picking my college, right? That's a pretty big juncture, but oh, that's great. You knew where you're supposed to go to college, Amanda. Okay, well, I knew my dad was going to die that morning. And yes, part of that is intuition. But when we connect with the higher self, the higher consciousness, that is our intuition. Our intuition is our higher selves. And remember, it's not limited to, intuition is not just higher self. Intuition is in our bones. It's in our cells, in our DNA, in activated awareness in our brain cognition. But the higher self is working to say, hey, connect with your gut, connect with source, connect with God, connect with your soul. And those things come together, and they come together with practice, right? And intention.
Last season, millions tuned into the Betrayal podcast to hear a shocking story of deception. I'm Andrea Gunning, and now we're sharing an all-new story of betrayal. Stacy thought she had the perfect husband. Doctor, father, family man. It was the perfect cover for Justin Rutherford to hide behind.
They led me into the house, and it was like a movie. He was sitting at our kitchen table. The cops were guarding him.
Stacy learned how far her husband would go to save himself.
I slept with a loaded gun next to my bed.
He did not just say, I wish he was dead. He actually gave details and explained different scenarios on how to kill him.
He, to me, is scarier than Jeffrey Dahmer.
Listen to Betrayal on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey parents, looking for something fun to listen to in the car with your kids? Blippi and Mika have a brand new podcast, Blippi and Mika's Road Trip. Each week, the Blippi Mobile will take your kids to amazing places.
Click, click, put your seatbelts on. Get ready for a ride, we're gonna have some fun.
They'll explore and listen to the sounds of amazing places like farms, racetracks, the moon, and even
Construction sites!
That's right, Flippy.
Follow your ears, what do you hear?
And they'll meet new friends along the way. Alongside Flippy and Mika, your kids will learn awesome new things about the places and things they see and hear. It's a fun, interactive listening experience for the whole family. Listen to Flippy and Mika's Road Trip on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Get emotional with me, Radhi Devlukia, in my new podcast, A Really Good Cry. We're going to talk about and go through all the things that are sometimes difficult to process alone. We're going to go over how to regulate your emotions, diving deep into holistic personal development, and just building your mindset to have a happier, healthier life. We're going to be talking with some of my best friends.
I didn't know we were going to go there on this.
People that I admire.
When we say listen to your body, really tune into what's going on.
Authors of books that have changed my life.
Now you're talking about sympathy, which is different than empathy, right?
And basically have conversations that can help us get through this crazy thing we call life.
I already believe in myself. I already see myself. And so when people give me an opportunity, I'm just like, oh, great, you see me too.
We'll laugh together, we'll cry together, and find a way through all of our emotions. Never forget, it's okay to cry as long as you make it a really good one. Listen to A Really Good Cry with Radhi Devlukia on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Another example of clearly hearing my higher self and a knowing would be when I met my husband, Dennis. I was not looking for a boyfriend, not looking for a man. I was literally at a train wreck station of my life that was just starting to wake up and get well and heal and grow. And I met Dennis peripherally like an acquaintance, but I remember I looked at him and I was like, whoa, something. And it wasn't, I'm not just talking about his looks. There was an energy about him, and I was like, whoa, I'm supposed to know him. And after a couple of conversations and after our first date, it was like I knew in my bones that he was my partner, and he did too. So like, I kind of love this, and I'm going to talk a little bit about interconnecting my higher self with someone else's higher self, and especially with free will and not intervening on someone else's highest path forward. So that's another example, and probably the most striking example I can give you of the first time I recognized my higher self and God and experienced it run through my body in the most expansive and real way that I have ever had in my life. It was 2013, and I was in a treatment center for alcohol addiction, and I was at my lowest of my low. And I was broken and ashamed and really beaten down by the disease of alcoholism, my actions, the pain I had caused, the pain I was experiencing. And I was extremely, extremely broken. But I started fessing up and facing up and saying, okay, I'm here to learn and grow, and I want to get better, and I want to live again, and I want to live healthy and happy. So I was doing all the work in the treatment center, and a friend of mine, we were on the porch, and she suggested, we were talking about Wayne Dyer, and she said, you know, what Wayne Dyer says is whatever you go to bed on at night is what your brain marinates in. And I know I've given this example, but it's important. And I thought to myself, gosh, for the past handful of years, I am either passing out at night, I'm going to bed angry and frustrated and can't get to sleep, or I'm going to bed at night saying, please don't let me wake up in the morning, let me just die. So if you think about a handful of years, every single night going to bed saying, God, please don't let me wake up. I'm a waste of space. I'm a waste of a human being. And then I would wake up in the morning and show up for work with a smile on my face, and I was so broken inside. I mean, that's how fragmented my soul was. And there was no way my higher self was going to get a hold of me with the alcohol, the drugs, the depression, the trauma, everything, all the residue, the layers that had built up, which is why I have the company I do called Soul Pathology. Pathology is about the pathway to a disease, and our soul is not diseased, but the mind, the emotions, the physical body, our energetic body is full of gunk and trauma and confusion and chaos, and so it's peeling back the layers to get back to the essence, the actual root of ourselves, our soul, our higher self. But I remember going to bed that night because she was telling me about Wayne Dyer. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to say these I am statements. And I was in my little twin bed in treatment. And I was relaxed and I said, okay. And in my mind's eye, I said, I am. And before I could even articulate that in my mind's eye, faster than lightning, love, loving, love, kindness, health, well-being, wholeness, sobriety, joy, peace. Like it was just, it like downloaded into my body. And I mean, I remember just beginning to cry. I felt my heart like open up like I had never experienced it before. And it was like as if God reached his hand down or an angel wrapped its wings around me and said, we got you. We got you. And when I talk to the higher self, I say, hey, y'all. I don't ever say, hey, Amanda. And I don't think of my higher self as masculine or feminine because I already told you it's like a mirror ball or a choir. So I say, hey, y'all. Hey, soul. Hey, higher self. And I do it in a hey. Hey, y'all. I do it in a hey because we're that familiar. I'm that close. And I know when I am not in alignment with my soul and source, when I'm in Amanda mode and I'm running around like a human doing versus a human being, which is what it feels like to be in connection with source and your higher self. But that flooded through me. And I remember when I asked my higher self and my soul and God, all of that, what am I? Immediately, the answers came. You are love. You are loving. You are worthy of love. You are giving and receiving love. Love was the answer I got. Who am I? I am love. And it's funny, and I don't know if I've shared this before, but my name, Amanda, means of love, worthy of love. I didn't put those puzzle pieces together, but the minute I ask who I am, it is the root origin of my name, love. And we are all love. We are all love, and we all have a ton of darkness, too. That's the beauty of it. That is the beauty of this, is you're not going to just live in your higher self. If you do, you're probably some enlightened being up on a mountain in Tibet. And there are devout human beings that are lifted up and enlightened in consciousness, like the Buddha or Jesus, for goodness sakes, embodying this fifth dimensional energy of healing and consciously being in the flow of that. And when I talk about fifth dimensional energy coming in, what we're doing is we're grasping for and reaching for and inviting in the higher self, which is activating higher consciousness, higher frequency, more love, more peace, more healing, more ease, more flow, more joy, all of those things. So think about critical points in your life where, oh, that was God. That was my higher self. Like that's what that was that gave me that knowing, that awareness, that insight that was so true with a capital T. That's the essence. That's the higher self. So think about those things so you can kind of correlate and smile about it. It'll help you to access it going forward. And the easiest way I know to activate and access this is to talk to your higher self. I do it all the time. And the simplest place to do that is at night. When you go to bed at night, make your list, do your thing, whatever you're doing in your head. See if you can settle and relax, whether you need to turn on some meditation music or do a little guided visualization, or you just need to use your breath and let your body sink into your sheets. But before you go to bed, and I pretty much do this every single night and have for over a decade. I mean, since that night in the bed where my higher self responded to me, and my higher self at that moment basically said, we've been waiting on you to talk to us, which was God. It was like everything, every aspect of myself and my soul, past, present, future, God, source, infinite. They were like, we've been waiting. Finally, you've been seeking your whole life, even in your alcoholism. You have been a seeker and a searcher, but you finally just simplified it down and said, hey, who am I? Rather than I'll tell you, or I need you, or help me. It was like, hey, who am I? And boom, it reverberated through my body like the song of my soul, which is what the higher self is. So the simplest way to do this is at night when you relax into the bed. I say things, and this is a great starting point. I'll say, hey, soul, hey, higher self, while I'm sleeping this evening. You can say just about anything, but what is the most important part of this is this caveat. Whatever you communicate with your higher self, your soul, God, source, may it be in the highest good, for the greatest good, for the highest good. Not just for the highest good of you, but for the highest good of humanity. So when I started intentionally having a dialogue with my higher self, whatever prayers, because it was kind of like prayer, right? Hey, soul, hey, higher self. I'm really struggling with this sobriety thing. I'm really afraid. I've got a lot of consequences. How am I going to, what's going to happen when I get out of treatment? I had all this fear. So I wouldn't ask those questions. I would say, hey, soul, can you bring me peace? Hey, higher self. Hey, show me the way forward. And for the greatest good. Whatever it is, I want it for the highest evolutionary aim, the greatest good. So no matter what I ever say to my highest soul, I say, and may this be in the highest good, which guess what? The highest good, the greatest good may not be what Amanda wants. What my ego is saying I think I need to be happy, to be abundant, to be successful, to be in love, whatever it is. So I always say, okay, if I've said this and I've said it in a really me kind of small framework, you just take it and you lift it up for the greatest good. And I trust that. I trust that the greatest good will unfold. I think the funniest, coolest example of this is my sister Mimi, who's been on the podcast. Years ago, I was headed home from work and she called me and she was wrestling with a scenario and it was a relationship. And I said, well, did you do what we talked about where when you go to bed at night, you say, hey, soul, hey, higher self. And I'm going to give you the story, so you have these tools too, because this is important. I said, did you connect yourself with this person's higher self for the greatest good? And she goes, well, I've been reluctant to do that. And I said, well, why is that? Because she has, a rich faith and believes in all these things. And she goes, well, if I give it to my higher self and it's for the greatest good, what if the greatest good isn't what I want? And I almost wrecked the car laughing so hard because it was so freaking honest and real that she was like, but I'm afraid to I'm afraid to fully surrender, fully give it to God, fully give it to my soul. Because what if the outcome is this person breaks up with me or this person doesn't love me the way I want them to love me? And that's how we are as humans. We want what we want. And it doesn't work that way. And I just laughed and I said, I love your honesty. I said, because that's so real. And I said, but until you really surrender it to your soul and your highest self for the greatest good of you and this other individual involved, because you don't want to, or we shouldn't, or we don't want to infringe upon somebody else's free will, whether we think it's going to be good for them or not. We are not the source on that. The higher self is guiding and directing us for our highest path forward, but we take our will back all the time because we're human and we're needy and we are afraid. There's, all the stuff we have. But it was so real. And then when we get real and we're like, okay, soul, okay, higher self, I'm really giving it to you, even if it means it's going to be painful or I'm going to lose someone. If it's in my best interest, then I trust that if I go through that and it's painful, there is something infinitely greater awaiting me on the other side of that. Because it's like these tests, test of faith, test of character. Are you really on the path? Do you really want to be on the path, or you want to stay here, in the long way around again? So if, let's say you're in a relationship, or you're struggling, or there's somebody you care about who's really struggling and you can't help them get well, but you've done everything you can. And so it's out of your control, out of your hands. My advice and what I would do, because I've done this for years and I've seen incredible miracles worked. And it doesn't mean that I'm not going to have to take action. It's not going to be hard, but I'll say, hey, soul, hey, higher self, connect my higher self with so-and-so's higher self for our greatest good, our greatest outcome, the highest good. Meaning not just the highest good of the two of us, but the highest good of humanity, of the collective, of the cosmos, of our higher selves, of our past evolutionary trajectory towards more light, more love. And that's called it's a massive surrender. But when that happens, sometimes people leave our lives and it may be well, we don't get what we want, but maybe we get what we need. And then something infinitely greater happens. So if you are struggling in a relationship and you want to include someone else's higher self, You don't want to like infringe upon their free will or think that you know best. That's the ego. That is not the higher self. The higher self never and never is a big word, but the higher self will never feel small and narrow and directive. The higher self is broad and roomy and expansive and rich. It's infinite. There's a different feeling, and we all know when we're like in a lot of self-will. It's like, I think this is going to be the best thing, and this is what I want. I mean, I just had this happen today. We're trying to adopt a dog, and we've been going through this adoption process, and like, I love this dog that we've met and identified, and we have gone through all the hoops. And I have said every time, hey, soul, hey, higher self, connect my higher self, Dennis's higher self, Abby, our dog's higher self, and this dog's higher self, and the owners of the rescue, and these people, all of the higher selves. And I say, okay, for the highest aim, for the highest outcome, for this dog, for us, for everyone involved. And guess what? Today just happened. Really the clear direction of this is probably not our dog. I don't think it's our dog because it's not going to be a good fit. And this boy, he's loving and amazing. He's just a little too big for his body. And he's going to overwhelm our pup, Abby. But it was funny because after our meeting today, I knew it in my bones. But I kept saying, no, but I want him. I want him. You know, it was like, but I want him. He's such a good boy. He's so beautiful. Like, you know, this is just how I'm thinking. But I kept saying, Amanda, it's going to add chaos. It could potentially be an unsafe scenario for the dog that you have, that you adore. He's a beautiful boy, but he's probably not a good fit. It's going to be too chaotic. It may not be right. And so, sure enough, I just kept saying, hey, soul, hey, our higher self, show me clearly beyond a shadow of a doubt. Let me know it in my bones. And by the time I got home, I had actually kind of forgotten about it. I had already made arrangements to talk to the woman who runs the rescue so we could get some feedback, but I had kind of really given it to my soul, and my husband said, as much as I think he's amazing and be a wonderful dog and he's such a good boy, he's too much. And he said, I think he's going to be too much for us to handle, and it's going to be really stressful, and I don't want to add stress to his life or our life or, of course, our dog Abby's life. And it was like, yes, I know. That's kind of what the knowing is like. When you feel connected to your higher self, it's that infinite peace that passes all understanding. Another trick, this is one thing I have done for years, and it will blow your freaking mind.
Last season, millions tuned into the Betrayal podcast to hear a shocking story of deception. I'm Andrea Gunning, and now we're sharing an all-new story of betrayal. Stacy thought she had the perfect husband. Doctor, father, family man. It was the perfect cover for Justin Rutherford to hide behind.
They led me into the house, and I mean, it was like a movie. He was sitting at our kitchen table. The cops were guarding him.
Stacy learned how far her husband would go to save himself.
I slept with a loaded gun next to my bed.
He did not just say, I wish he was dead. He actually gave details and explained different scenarios on how to kill him.
He, to me, is scarier than Jeffrey Dahmer.
Listen to Betrayal on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey parents, looking for something fun to listen to in the car with your kids? Blippi and Mika have a brand new podcast, Blippi and Mika's Road Trip. Each week, the Blippi Mobile will take your kids to amazing places.
Click, click, put your seatbelts on. Get ready for a ride. We're gonna have some fun.
They'll explore and listen to the sounds of amazing places like farms, racetracks, the moon, and even
construction site.
That's right, Blippi.
Follow your ears. What do you hear?
And they'll meet new friends along the way. Alongside Blippi and Mika, your kids will learn awesome new things about the places and things they see and hear. It's a fun, interactive listening experience for the whole family. Listen to Blippi and Mika's Road Trip on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
On a summer night in Paris, American artist Lee Krasner is drifting off to sleep when the phone rings. On the line, news that her husband, Jackson, is dead. Jackson, as in the painter Jackson Pollock. He might, to this day, be the most mythologized figure in American art. But how much of the story that we've been told about him is just that, a myth? On Death of an Artist, Season 2, Krasner and Pollock, the story about how the art world changed forever, and the story of the artist who reset the market for American abstract painting. Just maybe not the one you're thinking of. Listen to Death of an Artist, Krasner and Pollock on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
When I was still in healthcare and I was working with my higher self, and I would talk to my higher self all the time, at night, in the morning, in the day. Hey, soul, hey, higher self, guide and direct me today. Hey, God, pull this stuff in. Hey, soul, you're in charge today, not me. And then I'd pull myself back into self-will. But at night, when I would go to bed, if I knew the next day I had an important business meeting or things were just frustrating and nobody was on the same page and, there was a lot at stake and things like that, I would go to bed and I'd say, hey, soul, hey, higher self, connect me with these people for this meeting and for our most optimal outcome, for the highest outcome. While I'm sleeping, in my sleep state, orchestrate this as if it's already happened with the most optimal trajectory forward. Because in our dream state, we are at one a lot of times with our higher self, like we're up there in our higher self's office. Okay, and if you want to laugh, it's kind of like my oversoul is in an office with all these file cabinets and dealing with all these different versions of me in multidimensional time. I mean, can you imagine? Like, that's why I laugh about the soul. It's like managing. It's like, oh my gosh, pull it together, Amanda. Pull it together, version of Amanda 3,000 years ago and version of Amanda, over here that lives on Mars that has a different body. And I mean, this is the way I think. I think in the multiverse, because when I read for someone, it's like I can see the whole psycho-spiritual aspect of somebody. Past, present, future, soul, self. Like it just comes. And I'm like, that's why I know it's so multifaceted. And the more I know, the more I don't know. It's fascinating to me to connect with someone's higher self. And it's different for everybody. It's unique. It's this unique blueprint that is from source, from God, from the divine. And the higher self is, again, this emissary that's working, sometimes feeling like it's probably having to micromanage us or knock us over the head with stuff to get our attention, or sometimes give us this beautiful grace or reward when we are on track. But what I would say was, hey, higher self, hey, soul, connect me with these people for the most optimal outcome. Connect me at this business meeting I have tomorrow. Orchestrate all of our souls and all of our communication for the most optimal path forward for everybody. And there's something to that is not only enlightening, it's like, oh, Amanda doesn't have to humanly figure it out. I've just given it to my soul. And my soul's going to organize and orchestrate this stuff in the dream state, and I trust it. I know it. I don't just trust it. Like, I fundamentally know it because I've seen when I say something like that, and then I go to a meeting and it just like, there's new solutions or things that happen that I'm like, oh my gosh, I thought this was going to be so challenging and everybody was on the same page. Or, oh my gosh, we figured out a path forward that I could not have humanly fathomed yesterday. Does it always work out like that? No, because you know what else will happen? I'll say things like, hey soul, hey higher self. Connect me with the ideal people, places, and experiences for my greatest good, for the highest good, for the highest evolutionary aim. And I'll tell you what'll happen. Like, I'll say that at night, meaning kind of for the day forward. I'll have people cancel on me or change a plan, and I don't meet them that day. I don't go to a space where I'm like, oh, they're negative. Ooh, we weren't supposed to talk. Ooh, they have bad energy. It's more like, oh, they're not on my highest evolutionary path today, or maybe I was the destructor of their path for that day. So it may not be them whose energy was off or misaligned with mine for the day. They canceled, but I might be the one whose energy is misaligned for them. So I don't need to know. I just know, oh, that meeting was canceled. Okay, it wasn't supposed to happen. And it either will happen in the future and it's going to be more aligned and we're both going to be in the energetic space we're supposed to or not. Okay. So it creates this like clarity and acceptance. So feeling connected with your higher self, it comes with clarity, it comes with acceptance, and then deeper than that, knowing. Those are some of the easiest ways to connect with the higher self. And I talk to my higher self all the time. Yes, I do it in the morning and at night. That's your primetime television with your higher self, is right before you go to bed, because we do a lot of work in the astral plane and we're interconnected with all that multifaceted multiverse in that plane. So the more intentional you are when you go to bed in your consciousness, in your prayer, in your intention, and directly addressing your higher self. Hey God, hey source, hey higher self, hey y'all. And when I say hey y'all, it's not disrespectful to me. It's like, hey you guys, hey crew, hey choir. I mean it, I know it, because I'm like, hey, all the things that I know and don't know, every one of you, hey troops, I need your help tonight, or I need your support, or help me wake up rested and revitalized. It doesn't have to be accomplish this for me, because it's not about me telling my higher self what I want so much as being open to things like, help me wake up peaceful. Whatever I'm working through in the astral plane, do it for the highest, greatest good. Thank you so much. A thank you goes a long way with that. So after I say, hey, help me with this, or help heal this, or help me understand this better, or hey, I'm open. You guide and direct the show today. I'll say that a lot of times because that's how I pray to God. Hey, God, you take the freaking reins today, because Amanda may not know how to navigate things. I say that a lot, but then I say, wow, thank you, or thank you, as if it's already happened. It's very present and conscious, and that's super helpful. But I talk to myself, my higher self. I talk to myself too all the time. Don't worry. I talk to myself just plenty. But I talk to my higher self in the car a lot. If I find myself frustrated or aggravated or worried, wherever I am just in some exacerbated state, or I'm feeling resistant or limited, I just stop and I breathe and I say, hey soul, hey higher self, hey oversoul, take the reins, because I don't have the clarity around it. I'm out of alignment right now and I want to get back in. I want to jump back in the flow. And the more cognizant and conscious you are in your day, in the nuances, it takes practice and you can feel it. And I know when I am in the flow with my higher self, and I surrender it up to God and my higher self every single day. And sometimes I do it 50 times a day, and I'm not joking. And then other days I forget altogether. You're human. There's no perfect Venn diagram for this. And it's also using your own imagination and understanding and intuition to recognize how your higher self, how you feel it, how you know it, or when you're out of whack, out of alignment. So I hope that you're getting a better grasp on the higher self and the way to see it and experience it and feel more consciously connected to your higher self, because I will tell you this. The more that I reach for, embrace, and invite in my higher self, the more consciously I do that with connecting with Source and God and the divine, the more my intuition clarifies. I can see my psychic gifts and abilities kind of shoot through the roof, and seeing multi-dimensions of time and space and layers of things. It's just this part of my spiritual, personal healing journey that is a non-negotiable. It's a lifestyle for me. And it's because I flexed those muscles for long enough, and then I've seen incredible results. And I've seen painful results that might have at the time been super painful, but as long as I kept in hope and faith and contact and dialogue with my higher self, it's like, yeah, but on the other side of this, you see why this happened now. You have deeper meaning, more purpose in the pain and the tragedy and the messiness. Wow, look at how much you've evolved, and look at the new doors that have opened as a result of this. It doesn't just take away pain or trauma or just keep you, perfectly insulated on this beautiful path where life is just easy button. It's really if you want to work with your higher self and you choose to do this, this is quantum leap type stuff. This is not for the faint of heart. Just like the example of my sister saying, well, but if I really give it to my higher self for the greatest good, I may not get what I want. So I can't say that, And I have times, like I said, with the deal with the dog this week, I was laughing at myself because I was like, okay, whatever this is, it's for the highest, greatest good, higher self, soul, connecting with these people, it's the greatest good. And then I was like, but what if the greatest good is that we don't get this dog? And then I would start laughing at myself and I was saying, Amanda, are you ready to surrender yet? And I was like, no. And then like I did. So was that an end of the world, immediate, desperate thing that I was going through? No. But I want it to be aligned. I want it to be aligned for that dog and whatever family he finds, and our home and our family and our dog. So you can play with this in a multitude of ways. And I encourage you to start practicing it. So start with at night. Start with first thing when you wake up in the morning. Hey, soul. Hey, higher self. Today I'm available for. Today I'm available for peace. Today I'm available to be a vessel of light, love, and service. Today I'm available for being in the right place at the right time. And unexpected opportunities are going to unfold before my eyes, and I'm going to be amazed. I mean, you can say just about anything for the highest and greatest good. For the highest and greatest good of all, for myself and humanity. Thank you. Wow, thank you. So I hope that helped. I hope that defined some things. And definitely, if you have questions, like somebody, I think, asked, well, what is my higher self doing, when I'm at work or when I'm in the shower? And I mean, I think that's such a logical, reasonable question, right? Well, the way I think of it, I mean, I can't be like, oh, well, your higher self is, it's because it's so much more elusive, right? It's so infinite that it's unfathomable. But for me, like, let's say I'm just sending emails and doing work. My higher self is up there saying, gosh, thank goodness I've got Amanda under control for a little bit. She's getting some work done. She's being productive. She's not in a moment of desperation or begging me for help. Like, okay, I'm on autopilot for a minute. But your higher self is like collaborating with all these versions of you, with God, with Source, with the angels, with the archangels, with the masters, with your guides. Like, he's up there, like, or he, she, it, they. And I call the higher self they. Now you get why, because it's like not masculine or feminine. They are up there trying to orchestrate the highest path forward for the earth, for you, for your trajectory. And another question that might come from that is, well, is my higher self looking out for my best interest? What if my higher self is tainted? Or what if I'm fundamentally bad or wrong or evil or dark? Well, if you're going through a dark and depressive and heavy time, your soul is the one with the guiding light. Your higher self is a fundamentally innate part of you that is seeded from the divine, that has your best and highest and greatest interest at heart. So that part of you, that essence of you, is of the divine and of light. And the parts of us that experience heaviness, pain, and darkness, it's to infuse more light into the body. And the higher self is the gateway, the emissary of that divine source, divinity within, around, in every aspect of yourself. So the higher self is always guiding towards the highest aims, the highest opportunities, the lessons that are going to give you the growth and the experience that you came down here for. I incarnated to learn some pretty hard stuff. So did you. And it's messy and it's painful and it's traumatic and it's hard, and then it's wickedly beautiful and expansive. And I trust that I have this guiding light and this team. Like, my higher self is like a freaking, like, it's the A-team. It's the A-team over there. And my higher self has been around the block or two with me. So it knows me fundamentally. It knows where I'm going to scrape my knees and whine about something, or it knows where I'm going to celebrate and be joyful. And when I'm ready for certain lessons or certain doors to open or opportunities. So it's divine timing. The higher self is also connected with linear and infinite time and multidimensional time. So it's so unfathomable, but it's there. It's true. So I hope you have fun with that. And definitely, if you have questions, reach out. I'm super excited because I've kicked off the Conscious Collective. Well, it officially kicks off July 1st, but we've got an amazing crew that is assimilating. And if you haven't heard about this, we did a whole podcast just dedicated to what the Conscious Collective by Soul Pathology is. And it is a 6-month intensive spiritual mentorship that is community-based. So it will be a small community of people who invest the next 6 months, July 1st through December 31st, to regularly meet. And we will work with your higher self and be able to individually share experiences around and define that so it feels and is more fundamental, more innate, where it's just second nature to go to your higher self, to interconnect, to feel and be aligned, which in turn will create greater clarity, obviously expand your intuition and things like that. So this is just one of the things that we'll get to do a big deep dive into and extrapolate and explore. And I'm excited for that because when we all share experiences, it becomes more abundantly clear how we're not only connected to our higher selves, but how our higher selves are connected, because they're in like pods and soul tribes. And it's like, oh my gosh, we've known each other through lifetimes, or oh my gosh, how have I not known you yet? And it's like, that's when the higher selves and the souls, they've been up there like, smoking cigarettes up in the bathroom. Like, I always laugh about my higher self. I'm like, they're just over there like having a smoke break, like I can't even handle Amanda today. And my higher self never abandons me, but that's what I think, like, gosh, when is she going to meet this person or return this person's phone call? Doesn't she know she's going to totally fall in love with this human being and about to have the best new friendship ever if she would just call them back? Hello, they've knocked on her door 5 times. So this is the miraculousness of it, the infinite of it, and I'm excited to go deep with that. And if you are curious about the Conscious Collective, you can go to soulpathology.com. It's right up there on the banner at the top. And you can read all about it and see what the investment is. And then there's a podcast from me that really dives into what we're going to do and explore. And if you're a seeker and you've done some spiritual work and you're open to these things like the higher self, and you want it to be enriched and grounded in and solidified and validated through community and mentorship, then this might be for you. We'd love to have you join us. We have a handful of spots. It's a small crew. But definitely reach out and let us know you're interested. I hope you all have an incredible week. I hope you do some connecting with your higher self. And reach out and give me some feedback or ask some questions or share experiences. I'd love to be able to share those in the upcoming weeks. I hope everyone is well. And remember that you are here for love, higher love for sure. Be well.
Last season, millions tuned into the Betrayal podcast to hear a shocking story of deception. I'm Andrea Gunning, and now we're sharing an all-new story of betrayal. Justin Rutherford. Doctor, father, family man. It was the perfect cover to hide behind.
Detective Weaver said, "I'm sure you know why we're here." I was like, what in the world is going on?
Listen to Betrayal on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
A new season of Bridgerton is here. And with it, a new season of Bridgerton, the official podcast. I'm your host, Gabby Collins. And this season, we are bringing fans even deeper into the ton. Watch season 3 of the Shondaland series on Netflix. Then fall in love all over again by listening to Bridgerton, the official podcast on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe to catch a new episode every Thursday.
Hey parents, looking for something fun to listen to in the car with your kids? Blippi and Mika have a brand new podcast, Blippi and Mika's Road Trip. Each week, the Blippi Mobile will take your kids to amazing places. Your kids will learn awesome new things about the places and things they see and hear. It's a fun, interactive listening experience for the whole family. Listen to Blippi and Mika's Road Trip on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.